was tucked behind the pillar. The smell of stale metal and cheap wax was stinging my eyes and clogging my sinuses. It wasn't scented candle wax. It was grease and dried blood, a mix that clung to the back of my throat. I watched his silhouette move over the stone table. The single red light, coming from a projector that seemed to be there just to cast that specific color, was pulsing slowly, like a heart failing. He wasn't talking to the person lying there. He was talking to the air, or worse, to the darkness that seemed to be breathing right above us. I clenched my breath, trying not to let the rubber sole of my combat boot squeak on the concrete floor. My head was pounding with terror and confusion. I had seen a lot of weird stuff in the underbelly of elite celebrity events, but this wasn't a party. This was liturgy. His phrase was short, guttural, and chillingly clear. It wasn't a request. It was a deliverance, the way someone finally settles a debt that's years past due. He said, "Accept this. The performance starts in an hour." And then he licked his lips in a way that wasn't human. I knew in that instant that I was condemned, even if I was still breathing. I'm your host on Sloom Room. If you are looking for comfort, if you want gentle ghost stories to soothe the night, close this video right now. I don't trade in metaphors. I deal in facts, and the reality is always more vicious than the fiction. I stumbled across this account 2 weeks ago, buried in an encrypted section of a forum that exists only in the deepest trenches of the dark web. The source identifies himself only as Rhodey C., a production technician who completely vanished from social media and his job shortly after posting this. He used the letter P for the main celebrity involved and referred to the location as the complex. He couldn't afford to be discovered. What he describes, what he witnessed, isn't just a ritual. It is the viscous grime that supports the red carpet. Pay attention. My life was noise. It was blown-out lighting, ear-splitting sound, and impossible deadlines. I was one of the best fixers in Los Angeles. If something wasn't working, if a $1 million piece of gear failed mid-private party, I was the guy who came in, fixed it in 20 minutes, and disappeared. To the people who hired me, I was invisible, a well-paid ghost. That invisibility got me access to the innermost circle, the level where money wasn't an issue and the rules simply ceased to exist. I signed NDAs that would make a CIA agent weep. I worked for CEOs, for DC politicians, and of course for A-list celebrities, the kind of people who move millions with a single tweet. In December 2019, I got the call for P. This guy was immense. He was everywhere: music, movies, fashion. The type of person who seemed totally immune to scandal. His team called me at 3 a.m. The requirement was that I solve an urgent soundproofing issue at a rented property near Malibu, a place they internally called the complex. The one condition, besides the 70-page NDA that prohibited me from even mentioning the existence of the location, was that I didn't talk about what I saw. It wasn't about the job I did. It was about my silence in the face of the visual. I was supposed to be blind, deaf, and mute, except for my technical work. The payment was 20 times my usual rate. It was a bribe and a threat disguised as a contract. I arrived at the complex near dawn. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress of polished concrete and dark glass, isolated by miles of scrubland. The security wasn't outsourced. It was black suits who looked like ex-Delta Force, cold, using encrypted comms. I felt the pressure of the silence there, not the silence of nature, but a forced, oppressive quiet, as if sound itself was actively being sucked out of the air. I was searched 3 times and taken directly to the back, the most isolated part of the property. The problem wasn't at the main stage for the party happening that night. It was in the basement. They told me it was a soundproof rehearsal bunker that needed every decibel trapped internally. The basement looked like a polished slaughterhouse. The walls were smooth concrete, 0 windows, long, identical corridors. The air was dense, heavy, too cold for California. The smell of ozone mixed with something metallic and sickly sweet, nauseating, was constant. I was in the tunnel leading to what they called Level B. The feeling of being watched didn't come from the cameras. It came from the concrete itself. I was in the service of something that did not want to be disturbed. The specific point of my job was a reinforced steel door at the end of a corridor that hadn't appeared on any of the blueprints they sent me. I had to disable a pressure sensor that was setting off silent alarms. It was a door that only opened from the inside or with master codes. I disabled the sensor and used a master key that was part of my emergency kit. I shouldn't have opened the door. I should have lied, said it was broken, that I'd come back with a part and left. But the money was already in my account, and curiosity is an LA cancer that kills you slow. I opened the door just enough to slide my body through. The room wasn't a rehearsal studio. It was a chamber. In the center, there was a table that looked like it had been carved from black granite, resting on 4 thick bases. These bases had symbols cut into them. Not classic pentagrams, but circles cut by inverted lines and angles, stuff that looked like cheap occult rubbish, or maybe as something truly ancient, Enochian script. Above it, that single red light pulsed. And there was P. He wasn't wearing designer jeans. It was something made of dark linen, like a monk's habit, but tailored to look expensive and filthy. And the person, I won't give details. I can't. But what I saw wasn't an accidental death. There was no uncontrolled violence. It was arrangement. It was an offering. The victim's skin was pale and cold. There were traces of black beeswax on the forehead, and around the table, basins filled with liquid that smelled like stale wine, but it wasn't wine. P had his hands raised. He had been standing there, maybe 5 minutes, moving his lips without sound, staring into the darkness on the ceiling. I felt the weight of that place crush me. It was as if the atmospheric pressure had doubled, and he wasn't alone. There were other figures, 4 people, standing in the shadows, wearing the same dark linen. They were 2 women and 2 men, all faces I saw on television and magazine covers, celebrities of equal or greater caliber than P, all waiting. They were the audience. What was happening there wasn't P's personal freak show. It was a ritual, a structure, a cult, and their success was paid for. The panic hit me like a punch to the sternum. I gasped for air and recoiled, slamming my shoulder into the steel door frame. P didn't see me. The others were too focused on the table. But one of the security suits, standing in the corner shadow near a supporting pillar, saw me. His eyes showed no surprise, just a complete mechanical coldness, as if he had expected someone to see and that my fate was sealed. It was in that moment P spoke, the voice guttural, deep, that roar. "Accept this. The performance starts in an hour." I crawled out of the complex in less than 10 minutes. I lied to the security guard at the gate, said the power grid was compromised, that I needed tools. I drove 100 meprams to the airport. I wired the money back. I paid a lawyer to create a clause that allowed me to return the payment without breaking the NDA. I didn't need triple my salary to know I'd be the next guest on that granite slab. I vanished from L.A. I changed my phones, my online name. It wasn't about the FBI anymore. It was about the thing watching pee from the ceiling. I know they looked for me. I know they know what I saw. I posted this in fragments, terrified, so that if anything happens to me, what I saw will be recorded somewhere they can't easily erase. Their fame isn't organic. It's fed. It's bought with the flesh and blood of people they think no one will miss. The credibility of this account isn't just in the terror of the description, but in how it was posted and how the author disappeared immediately afterward. The world of these people is built in front of cameras, but the real foundation is made in the shadows, in concrete bunkers and rituals that cost lives. What you just heard is the price of celebrity. If you made it this far, you know there is more darkness than light on this planet. For more accounts like this, where reality proves more disturbing than the nightmare, subscribe to Sloom Room. Share this video with anyone who needs to know the truth, but do it secretly. They are always listening.